tuning in. We got another quick show for everyone. We're going to talk about the previous game. We're going to talk about several other things too. But before we get into this thing, I have the Dallas prospect, DDP. Go ahead and tell a man about the website and what all you have going on and this sort of thing.
Hey man, what's up? DDP, Dallas Prospect. The website is the place to be as far as Dallas sports and pop culture. Cover everything from Mavericks, of course, Cowboys. Big Cowboy news today. I'm going to be writing on it here probably in the next few hours as I pull a long night working on stuff. And yeah, lot to talk about with the latest Cowboys blockbuster trade, and we're gonna work off of that. But yeah, check it out, thedallasprospect.com.
Yes, indeed. Where every legend was once a prospect, guys.
Yes, sir.
Especially, speaking of that, we're going to talk about this a little bit later down the line. But I want to know your thoughts. I want to know your opinions. I want to know your feelings, basically, about this red skin. I call them dead skins. But, you know, I want to know your thoughts about this game. Are we ultra conservative? Was that a game that we should have won? Or was that a game that, hey, the Redskins are just a better team? Let me know what's your thoughts on this.
You my thoughts on it? I thought
Yes.
I didn't know if you were addressing the comments as a whole there. Okay, so Redskins outplayed them for most of the day, but there's no reason they should have been. Dallas's offensive line continues to get whooped on the road, and it's dragging the team down. Zeke goes something like 15 for 34. I mean, Zeke, you suddenly can't get Zeke going on the road like at all. I don't know. I think he's gone over 100 yards once on the road this year, and that was at Seattle. So it's terrible how they can't do that. Your identity is supposed to be built around that. You spent $100 million on the line. Granted, Frederick's not playing. You got a 4th overall pick in Ezekiel Elliott, and you're telling me you can't run the ball on the road? Dak had 276 passing yesterday. It was his best passing game of the season with regard to yards, which goes to that paradigm we talk about where everyone says, oh, he's got to throw for at least 200 for it to be a good game for him. All right, which Dak would you rather have? 276 and a loss, and you know he had a couple fumbles, or would you rather have the 180 versus Jacksonville? You gotta play to his strength. The number doesn't mean everything in this case. So Dallas at the end there, all there is to say on that, they had the chance to win it. They had a chance to steal a game they had no business being in. When they go down 10 with like 5:47 to play, that game was over. It was. But Dak, say what you will about him, dude's tough, dude's a fighter. Battles the team down the field, gets the touchdown. Defense gets him a 3-and-out. And then Cowboys get the ball. I think it was about midfield with like 52 seconds. Still have a timeout left. They go 3 plays for 15 yards and burn 45 seconds of clock time. They spiked the ball once to stop the clock. And they were playing for the field goal. And not only were they playing for the field goal, they were playing for a 47-yard field goal. Like, are you kidding me? You have a chance to steal a game. You have no business winning at that point, and you're going to play for overtime. No, man. On that last drive, Cole Beasley was doing work. He the corner that was guarding him, the slot corner for Washington, his name escapes me right now, but he got hurt. He came out of the game, and Cole was doing work. You go for the kill. You don't, by any means, go for a layup. And I was like, even what I was telling the people I was watching the game with, I was like, even if they make this and go to overtime before the BS infraction on LP Ladisor, I was like, even if they make this and go to overtime, I don't like their chances to win it. They have Washington. When Dallas went up 10 points, Washington let their foot off the gas because they're like, oh, we got this.
Right.
And then suddenly with Dallas driving with under a minute left and, you know, crossing midfield, you could tell looking at Washington, they were like, holy crap, are we about to lose this? Like, is this game slipping away from us? And then Garrett's like, no, we got you. We're gonna attempt a really long field goal. It's cool.
Yes, indeed. Hey,
so bad.
It's the exact same thing we've been seeing for time and time and time again. I liked the show earlier today from the state that they are in. It's just like the steel curtains. The Steelers go by the steel curtains because they are a steel, I guess, state or what have you. But he just started talking about, he started talking about the I guess it was the Bad Boys, Detroit Lions, and they took on a persona from the actual state or Detroit per se. They're hardworking people and they're rough. And he was talking about the Showtime Lakers. Okay. It was like a show. You see where he was going? And he was talking about everything in Texas is supposed to be big. I'm
feeling a troll coming.
Yeah, I know the trolls are coming in, but let them be. But this is the thing.
I meant with Colin Cowherd's comment. It felt like he was setting up for that.
Oh, yeah, he was setting up for it. But everything in Texas is supposed to be Big D. And everything in Texas also, you got a guy that lives and built his house on the edge, and that's Jerry Jones. He built his house on the edge. He takes risk. He's a gambler. But now you have an ultra-conservative coach, and it's just like these two things don't marry up to one another. He was saying that, hey, Texas should stand for like, hey, we're going to go down there. We're going to shove this ball down the opposition's throat. But they decided, like you just said on your wonderful opening statement there, is that all they wanted to do was just go down there and say, okay, we're going to go for the tie. We're not going to go for the juggle.
That was so crap. And here's the thing, like for me, that decision is almost as bad as the 4th and 1 in Houston from the Houston 42 and OT. Almost as bad. At least there, you hadn't, I know you hadn't been running the ball well, but you weren't even having to do that in this game to move the ball. You had a receiver who was getting going, who the last 2 weeks has been fire, and you had an opportunity to steal it. It's different in Houston. Houston, it's like, I think Houston, you could have still gone for the kick and been like, hey, at least you're aggressive in that way. Punting it was the most ultra conservative. But to me, this is almost as bad just being a division rival game and one that kind of hurts you double by being a division rival.
Yes, indeed. So, I mean, moving a little bit further on beyond that, how this team can turn the corner. Of course, we doing our bye week. Now we can reevaluate everything. Something like this. When you lose, sometimes you look at every tape and film. You look at it more and more, and you look at try to find those things where you can improve at. And I think the Dallas Cowboys did this. Let me know of your thoughts of this guy that we got a picture on the backdrop behind us. He wears number 89. I don't know what number he's going to wear for the Cowboys.
Yeah, we don't know.
Thoughts on him. Give me your thoughts on him.
So obviously today, the Dallas going into their bye week, they're going to have to sit here for a while and kind of sit and stew on this loss. They're going to have to answer questions about identity. So I think a couple things happen here. One, this is good for them because it shifts the focus, because now everyone's talking about Amari Cooper instead of, Washington. How quickly, like that's why we're glossing over the Washington game and talking more about Amari Cooper. And I get it. Like there are other issues with that game, but we'll keep this on Cooper because that's the big story at this point. So I wanted Cooper, but I wanted Cooper for a second. And the reason I said that, and I think I said that to you and James in a text, my thinking of that was that, one, you're talking about a guy who was super productive his first couple of years. The last couple haven't been, last year and then the start of this one haven't been as impressive. And at 24 years old, he's still clearly a candidate to be a number 1 receiver. Certainly better than anything you've got. He's a bigger receiver, and he's got some Dez-esque kind of qualities about him, sometimes in some bad ways, which I'll get to in a moment. But it made sense to me to say, okay, a second rounder for you. Because if Dallas is going to invest in a receiver next year, like a true number 1 receiver, where are they going to have to take him? The first round. And clearly they've acknowledged as much that was their thinking. So the thing is, when you bring that in, one, it's not a super great class of receiver coming out. Two, they're hit or miss. Any draft pick anyway is hit or miss. And three, it's going to take some growing pains before you really see dividends from that player. Most of the time. There are some exceptions. But for the most part, that's what you were looking at. So this eliminates all of that. You get a 24-year-old guy who comes in as automatically your number 1 receiver, and you don't have to do it. So you're spending less of a what's the phrase? Whatever. You're spending less of an asset to get him as a second than you would if you drafted a receiver as a first. Now you're paying him more, but you got the cap room to do that. Instead, Dallas gives them a first, which is the asking price. And yeah, I know Philadelphia late last week made filthy made a pitch to get him for a second rounder. They turned it down, they being Oakland. And, you know, kudos to them, because if they had a feeling Dallas was going to come sniffing around before the deadline, they were right. And we gave them exactly what we wanted. I don't know. I guess Steven was aware that Philadelphia was calling in, because sources close to the Raiders GM basically says, yeah, the conversation basically went as such. Stephen Jones called in, said, you want a first rounder for Amari Cooper? We want Amari Cooper. We have a first rounder. Let's make this happen. That's not negotiating. Like that's like paying the ransom money. Like, at least have a dialogue there, man. And who knows? Maybe there was some conversation back and forth. I don't want to completely say 100%.
Say, okay, all right, we do some conditionals. You know, I will give you a third round draft pick with the conditions. If he catches X amount of balls, it'll turn into a 1. Or I would give, you can backload it, whereas I would give you this first round draft pick for Amari Cooper if, you know, he catches these amount of balls, and I would throw in a next year's 5th or 6th round draft pick if he continued to be this. And you just got to just soup it up a little bit in order for them to say, okay, yeah, because you had to try to figure out a way to beat Philly. You got to figure out a way, because you can only imagine, you can close your eyes and say, okay, Alshon Jeffries, Wallace, and then you have Amari Cooper out there. And then you already having a team right now that you can say that we're pretty much in the same wheelhouse as far as record-wise. Nobody's running off. Although the Redskins beat us the other day, they're just not running off with it. No one can tell me that the Redskins is just going to go on this magical run, because it just don't look that way.
Right.
But neither here nor there. I'm thinking that maybe Jerry Jones saying, okay, we need that little spark right now so that we can stay in this race. Now, this is the thing. What a lot of us have to say after this movement right here, that it removes all doubt. It removes all excuses for my guy number 4. I can't go back and say, well, hey, Dak, you got an undrafted Deontay Thompson, ball bouncing off his body like he trying to play volleyball. Then you have the other guy, Allen Hurns, ball squeezing through his hands like he got parquet made of fingers. And then on top of that, you can't outrun a linebacker. You got to outrun the linebacker, number 17. You got to outrun him now. And then also you have Cole Beasley. He's doing his thing. Although he's not drafted, but he's doing his thing. So I can't have that excuse no more, DDP. They took my excuse from me. So what do you feel about this, man? How are they going to utilize them? How do you feel about that?
Well, here's one thing to consider as well with Cooper. This is kind of the flaws to his game. Even though he's a great route runner, he is a definite case of the drops. Like, as a rookie, he dropped 20% of his targets. Yeah. Between 15, 16, and 17, he dropped 14% of his targets. So he is a guy that will drop the ball on you. Like, if that was one of the main things leveraged against Dez the last year or two he was here, and if it was something that Cowboy fans complained with regard to Terrell Owens when he was here, all of that is valid, and that's something we're still going to have here. The difference is this guy's 24 years old. He's 5 years younger than Dez. He's automatically got to be your X, I think. And you got 2 weeks to work him in as far as getting him up to speed with the offense and practicing with Dak and all that. He's coming off back-to-back bye weeks effectively when he finally does play. He had a bye week last week in Oakland. So he's going to have some time to work with Dak. And as you said, it removes the excuses for Dak, but it also tells me that they are all in on Dak. It's not a strong quarterback class coming out either. And they're looking at this and they're saying, yeah, rather than, if we're picking somewhere around 20, which is probably what they're going to do, they're basically saying, yeah, we're not going to trade assets to trade up to the top of the draft, even if we were thinking quarterback. We're just going to spend the first rounder, which will probably be a mid to late first rounder, and we're going to just go with that. We're going to say Dak is our guy. This does force you to prove whether or not Dak can make himself a clear franchise quarterback. I've said for a while, you can win with Dak. You just have to have the right pieces. This is one of those pieces. Do I feel that they overpaid? Yes, I do.
Right.
But, they made the decision they made. It makes the team better right now, so I get it. And they're probably going to extend Cole Beasley now is the talk, so that moving forward, Dak will have Cooper, Beasley, and Gallup, which isn't a bad trio.
Not a bad entree, right?
Yeah.
But this is the thing, too. I want to bring up this right here. And I'm going to play a little devil's advocate, just a little bit, Cowboys Nation. And you guys put your opinions, your thoughts out there. It's in the chat box. And shout out to those that's on Facebook panel. Hey, it is what it is. This is what I want to put out there right now, DDP. One can argue this. I would say this. Maybe you can have your reservation on Taco, but outside of every first-round draft pick that we picked after Mo Claiborne, did we hit on those first-round draft picks?
Well, let's see. Martin,
I know you got it.
Martin, Frederick were hits. LVE looks like a hit, even though initially the three of us weren't psyched about it. Granted, that was more concerned about his injury history and everything. Byron Jones eventually came about. He was kind of iffy for a little bit there. Let's see. What's another first rounder? You mentioned Taco, but he's the one that's just kind of a decent rotational player.
Just got to have your reservation a little bit on the Tacos right now.
True.
He's not a double decker.
In large part, right now. In large part, they've done well in the first round the past few years. The second round is typically where they gamble. That's where you see them. Randy Gregory was the off the field trouble guy, but like that's usually where they gamble with like long term, like, hey, let's roll the dice here and see if we can get a stud player who should have been a first rounder, but an injury held him back. That's your Sean Lees, your Bruce Carters, your Jalen Smith, et cetera. That's those investments there. So that's why I wanted a second, because I can be your number one in spite of his last year and a half of football. And the question is Derek Carr the part of the problem in Oakland, or is it that Cooper has regressed and simply isn't as focused and passionate about the game anymore? Those are questions that have been asked in the last, few weeks.
Hey, before you move a little bit further, since you mentioned the word invest, thank Esco is real. Thank you for investing in the nation. He just dropped a dub out there. Big 2-0. Appreciate you for making the donation to help grow the nation, man. Every penny count. People like you, man, help grow this thing, and I really appreciate you for dropping $20 for the help growing this thing. Are we live on your page too?
Yeah, we're live on the Prospect page and YouTube and all that. We're everywhere.
Yeah, make sure I know Glad somewhere around there. Let's make sure he's.
Glad was one of the first in the house as usual. Yeah. So
you're talking about. I'll talk about the will to play. That's the thing that Amari Cooper was talks about that in Oakland, that he maybe lost the will to play, the desire to play. And that's a real big question mark for me, because I want somebody with passion, fire. I play with that mindset, with the mindset of saying, I can make this possible. I always say this as a theory or as a mental mindset. A determined person with a spoon can dig a ditch faster than a lazy man can with a crane. Meaning that it's all about your desire, your passion, your heart, your soul, your sinew to get out there to make things happen. Now, if Amari Cooper, if he don't get down here in Texas and say, I'm going to look around at Jerry Jones Stadium, the $1 billion playpen that it is, if he's not getting fired up and pumped up and ready to play, and I'm talking about diving for the ball if it's like a few inches in front of him, putting his body out there on the line and saying, okay, I'm determined to win this game more than I want to lose this game, then that's when I can say. But if he's like one of those guys saying, I'm just here to play, I'm here to collect a check, this will be an epic disaster.
Yeah.
But what do you feel about that? Do you think it's just a new, fresh air, change of scenery will uplift this young guy's soul and mind to be able to play?
I think it'll have a positive impact on him, yeah. I mean, we remember Rolando McClain, Raider. He then had a cup of coffee in Baltimore before eventually coming here, and we heard the same things, that he kind of lost the passion for it, and he came here and he was, at least briefly, reinvigorated. Now, he wasn't able to sustain that, but for a year and a half here, he had turned around and he was focused and he was.
Did they go to the same school? Did they go to the same school?
Yeah.
Roll Tide, huh?
Yep. So it's a big acquisition in that regard. And what sounds like it made it a done deal for Dallas was that there are no strings attached. Cooper was willing to say, I'll come in and not have the expectation that I immediately get an extension. And so what Dallas is doing, he's under contract for next year. By the way, $14 million for next year, which is more for those counting at home than we cut Dez for.
Wow.
But Dez was 12.
Shoot that number again. How much?
14 million next year for Cooper.
How much money do we have in the cap next year anyway? Do you have that number?
Like 70.
Okay,
something like that. But we still got to re-sign DeMarcus Lawrence.
Okay.
I think if you include his, from the projections I was seeing, if you include his likely expected extension, it's like 45 million. But you still got Byron Jones out there. You still have Martin's money kicking in at that point, his new deal, and you're gonna have to figure it out. So it does get more complicated. You have to sign
David Irvin. Is he's on his last year too?
Yeah, he's on it. He's
I don't know if you can sell him peanuts,
franchise. Or no, that's Lawrence who's franchise. But yes, Irving is tendered, so it's his last year. He's going to be unrestricted free agent, I believe. But so with Cooper, the change of scenery will help. But what iced it was that he was willing to not immediately sign an extension. He's willing to hold off. So if you're Dallas, you have to get this done, right? Because a first-round pick, say what you will about how long it takes to develop them and whether or not they hit or miss, you got that guy for 4 or 5 years, easy. If you're telling me you gave up a first for Cooper and he's here a year and a half and then you don't lock him up, whether it's that he's not setting the world on fire or that his asking price is like, that's a little high for what we want to pay. You know, he made 14 million his first full season with us and expects that number to go up potentially. I don't think that's going to happen, especially since in our offense, he's not going to produce big numbers. If you let him walk,
let me ask you this though. What was Dez Bryant's stats in 2016?
2016 was like 835 yards, something like that, or 869 yards.
That's even him minusing or missing about
4 or 5 games. Yeah, it was more than that, yeah.
So anything less of that, Cooper, would that be a disappointing deal there, or would you like to have him with 2017?
Are we talking next year? Are we talking next year for Cooper and anything less than that, or are you talking about this year?
This year, he got
he's got 9 games with us.
Yeah, 9 games. You can add into whatever stats that he carry over from the Raiders. I just throw that in as a caveat. What would you say if he just get out here and be 2016 Dez for us? Would that be a good deal for
that? Would it be a good for a first year of the, not even a first year, for a first sample size of his ability? I would say if he could produce around those numbers, that'd be. Thing is, moving. But our offense isn't one that produces big numbers for receivers typically. Now, he might have games where he can get multiple touchdowns, but it's kind of like the Cole Beasley thing where it's like red zone targets or something to that effect, which is fine. I just mean you're not going to see him go for $160 or something like that, hardly ever. But it's one of those things where comparing him to Dez, this year, these 9 games, I'm not frankly that worried about his stat outcome. I just want to see that he's one, having an impact on the game. One thing, I know this is a young kid, so I don't want to, act like I'm throwing shade at him. Michael Gallup, I think, has a lot of ability, and he flashes it about 1 play per game. He'll get about his 1 catch for 27 yards, 30 yards, or in the case of yesterday, he'll break the 1 over the top on the nasty double move, and he's off. And that was sweet. He finally got his first touchdown that counted, but he disappears in large part after that.
Or they don't just go his way.
Yeah, there's a little bit of both of that. Right. Yeah, a little bit to both sides there. You're right. But I want to see Cooper come in and have an impact on the game where he doesn't disappear for large stretches. And I want to see that he's developing some chemistry with Dak, because at 3-4, 0-4 on the road, 3-0 at home, you could win all your home games, but you still have to find a way to win at least 1 or 2 road games to even have a prayer of the postseason in most cases. You got to go typically 10-6. Now, I know our division's weak. Maybe 9-7 is all you need this year.
Right. But
if you're 9-7, you're not a threat to anyone really in that situation. This team can't string 2 wins together. Like, we're 7 weeks into the season and we don't have back-to-back wins.
We need back-to-back home games. Anybody got the schedule?
we need to just convert all our schedule here out to be nothing but home games.
Nothing but home games, and maybe we can get things together from here. And speaking of home games, shout out to Amaro Tezaraz for making another donation. We're making a donation to help grow the nation. Dropped $20.01. He said, "I raised you 1 penny from the other guy." So appreciate you, man. And he says that
man, you got your people betting against each other. That's how you do it, man.
A competition, right?
Hey, people in Prospect, hint, hint. No, I'm kidding.
He said, "Love watching y'all. D-Law, Okoye, Vach, and Mark Holmes. It would be nice to see all of you guys in a video chat at some point, I guess, or some sort, to talk about Amari Cooper and what he would draw to the extra man and lighten up the box." To me personally, I only got a chance to evaluate a few clips, and Vach Lombardi got a film session already on Amari Cooper out right now. Go to Vach Lombardi's page and you can see him. He showed one play that he took the top off the defense. They can line him up inside as the Z. He can be a flanker too. So he can be a guy that you can line up as the inside on the route, and you can vertically take him up the seam. And what that does is that you do not want to box cover or your bracket coverage this guy, number 89, Amari Cooper. And especially now that you have a Cole Beasley and you have Amari Cooper, you can line them up side by side, and then you can do a lot of route combos from there. So I don't know whether or not the creativity of what Jason Garrett is going to do, or Scott Linehan, but there are some talk tracks and there are some noise and rumors and rumbling out there that Amari Cooper was trained under some of Scott Linehan's, I guess, contemporaries, I want to say. So we will see, though. The biggest thing is that it's on a bye week this week, and then the next game is not until a Monday night. So they give us an extra time for the develop and have that chemistry with that. And then I like, believe it or not, because still Michael Gallup still possesses the main X factor type of a receiver. Hopefully down the line, Michael Gallup can still be that guy that you can look up and say, okay, he can play the X, and then you can rotate Amari Cooper in and out of his alignments and assignments out there. It can get very trickery, especially with trip formation and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And some interesting context as well on Cooper that we were talking about a little bit earlier. So everyone's looking at this, and some rightfully so, saying, well, why didn't you just take Calvin Ridley in the first round? You could have had, the Alabama receiver, great route runner, doesn't have the case of the drops like that at all, and you would have him under contract for 4 or 5 years. True, that was out there. That's not to say that LVE has by any means been a disappointment. In fact, I would say he's exceeded my expectations quite well so far. But it is something where you have to also look at it as you pointed out, Amari Cooper is only 6 months older than Calvin Ridley, despite the fact that Cooper's in his fourth year in the NFL,
and 2 Pro Bowls,
which is kind of hard to believe, but I guess that's what it is. So the difference there, of course, as I mentioned, you're going to pay Cooper $14 million next year, and you're not going to have to pay that. You wouldn't have to pay anything like that if you had drafted Calvin Ridley in the first. But I kind of look at it as, well, you got the money to spend anyway, and yes, this is going to complicate some of the other guys, because we know Dallas doesn't like to go get big name free agents. They like to sign their own. That's what they're going to try and do. They're going to have to sign DeMarcus Lawrence. They're going to have to sign Byron Jones. There's going to be other things they have to figure out. Eventually, you're going to have to worry about your running back and your quarterback as well, because they are all in on Dak. That's what this move proves. So you're going to have to figure out how to afford those things, and obviously a receiver doesn't exactly help that. Even still, I still think that, at least in the short term, this is a good move, just in the case of the acquisition. Again, I don't like the pick necessarily associated, but just from a talent standpoint, he's your best receiver. This is them, I think, admitting, yeah, we were wrong saying we didn't need a number 1 receiver or a big receiver like a Dez type. Yeah, we were wrong about that. For the people saying, why didn't you just go get Dez then? It's 7 weeks of the season, guys. Dez is still out there. If you did sign him tomorrow, there's no way he has any impact on this season. And he's 29 going on 30. you're not going to get a whole lot out of him. Like, I know some people are still beating that drum. It's just like the same people beating the Romo drum. It's not happening at this point. Like, I get it. They were great, and it sucks, that they're not here, but to varying degrees, health played a role in both of them. And you can say it's hypocritical of the Cowboys to cut Dez and then sign Cooper. Dez has too many drops, cut him. Well, then you just gave up a first round for Cooper. Yes, but Cooper's 5 years younger, and they're going to bank on the fact that given a new system and a new kind of culture around the team, that they can get more out of him than Oakland did. Whether or not that's true, we'll see.
Yeah, I think too much noise went back and forth with Dez, and I love Dez Bryant. He speaks with a lot of passion and things like that. But I think that, Rock Nation, his agency, let him down. I think that he talked too much about, and I do know that sometimes when your name and your voice is out there, but you just don't want to just talk about people, knowing that you might have to go back to the people that you talked about. That's why they're saying you shouldn't throw stones if you live in a glass house, meaning that you can bust some things around. And when he talked about Snake Lee, he said Snake Lee. He talked about Travis Frederick. These are guys that are leaders of this team, and other teammates listen to these guys. So what will happen here if you bring Dez Bryant back? You will have this division in the locker room, and they're not trying to have that. And I think that already on record, Sanjay Lyles, he already spoke ill of Dez Bryant. And then the other guy, Will McClay, that everybody praise and pump up, he spoke negative of Dez Bryant. So I think that these guys still don't want to walk back on their words. They would rather try a new product and say, okay, we would love to bring them back in certain factors. They might have whispered that amongst themselves, but they said, we can't just walk on our words. So let's move on from here,
Absolutely. So this is going to bring in a new era for them.
Let me throw a wrinkle for you right quick. Throw this wrinkle in at you. Patrick Peterson requested to be traded. Would you entertain that at all?
No.
You wouldn't do that at all? You wouldn't entertain it?
I mean, based on what the price would be to get him, which, again, we've already now traded some picks. We're not, or one pick, our top pick. We're not going to give up any other draft picks, I don't think. Peterson's, what, 30 approximately?
Age as Dez. I think he came out in the same
29. Yeah, so 29, 30, 29 going on 30. So, yeah, he's a little up there in age. I know that our secondary is allowing a high completion percentage, but you have prospects there that you think can do a lot. So it doesn't make sense to me. This is not the year to make a bunch of these moves and to say, all right, this is what we're going all in on. Because then I don't know how many years Peterson has left on his deal, but then if you do get him, all right, are we going to have to extend him soon? Is that one more guy we got to figure out how to pay, or is it better just to have our young guys that we have here, most of which under good deals? Byron, you're going to have to make something happen. But to me, that's
let me just say this right here, and this is what I'm thinking. I could be 1,000% wrong. I think that Patrick Peterson, players of his caliber, normally the trend for them is to actually swing over to safety down the line. Once they lose a little quick twitch and being up front and tight. Yeah, and he will be your answer to your safety help. Because I saw out there earlier in the last game, the guy number 29 named Goodwin. I never saw him out there, never even got a chance to evaluate his tape. Yep. I'm talking about the guy who got his lunch money taken from him last game. And I was like, who is this guy? Where did he come from? And I always went back to this saying, you know what? We need some safety help out there bad. And I saw number 30. I saw him getting burned like French toast out there too. So I would do this, if the Cowboys decide to listen to what I'm saying, is that, okay, we know Cheeto Awuzie, he's bad, he's a good guy, but wouldn't it be better for us to have also Cheeto Awuzie? Maybe you can slide him into the nickel or slide him into the inside, have Patrick Peterson on one side of the field, and we already know what Byron Jones is doing out there on the other side. Now we have some guys that can actually take the ball away from the opposition. Our defense is solid. They good.
They're second to last, though, in turnovers forced per game. That is the one big trend that really haunts them. There are only teams with fewer turnovers than them, but those are teams who have had bye weeks already. So when you factor in turnovers per game, Dallas is second to last, which is weird. You typically associate a good defense with being able to take the ball away. Yet we say week in and week out, oh, this defense is really good. Like, they keep Dallas in games. Their goal line defense, they're making it a staple of their identity to hold teams to field goals inside the 5-yard line or inside the 10-yard line. Like, that's really impressive.
Hey, hold on. Before I would like some more another word. You said 5, and shout out to B Wee for making a donation. He dropped 5, as you said 5, into the chat box. I really appreciate you for making the donation.
So I should have said 500, you're saying.
If you just said 500, B Wee said he would have put 500 in there, man. That's what I'm talking about.
All right,
Thank you for making the donation, man. He said Amari is big and strong and fast. Can take the short passes too underneath. Not coming off of an injury or old. Amari, Bees, and Gallup and Tavion, Tavion is a legit NFL wide receiver core. Yes, that is legit. We just need Tavon to I said Tavion. I'm thinking of Jerry Jones. He called Tavion Tavion.
Right.
But appreciate you for the donation to help grow the nation. B Wee, yes, you are 1,000% right. This is looking scary just
for the future.
For the future. This is looking scary just in one day. Because I can only imagine. I know that the reverse sweep was something is implemented in his offense.
Jet sweep.
Yeah, the jet. That's it. Reverse. Yeah, jet sweep is implemented in his offense because we saw Jordan Lewis get out there and get 7 yards. He actually averaged more yards per carry than I ain't gonna say Ezekiel Elliott, but you know how it goes, man. It's something special about that jet sweep in this particular offense. But go ahead and go with your point, man.
I mean, what they're building a little bit, but I can recover with something different. What they're building, if Cooper can be kind of what they think, if he can be a guy that is, let's say, 1,000 yards and 7-8 touchdowns, ideally in this offense, that's probably about the most he'll be. Would you like a little more than that? Yes, but you're probably not going to get more than that with Dak. So if he can be something along those lines and they keep him, then he's with them, throughout Dak's time as the quarterback, whether that's one more year, whether that's whatever. The Cowboys have made their point. They are all in on Dak. And Jerry, or sources close to Jerry, have said there are 2 untouchables for this season, no matter what happens: Dak Prescott and Chris Richard. Now that one, the second one's, it's basically saying even if the fire comes down, rains down upon this team, the one coach who's not going to take any blame in Jerry's mind is Chris Richard, who he has, quote unquote, become obsessed with. So he said that he can see Richard being either the defensive coordinator, maybe even the head coach in the future. So there's something to consider there. But regarding the offense, yes, it's another promising piece, but we got to get this offensive line right. And that'll help with age. Connor Williams will do better. Hopefully they get Travis Frederick back and he's right. I'm at this point, I'm almost saying just wait until next year for Travis. It's not worth bringing him back for this team because I don't think this team is showing enough to convince me they're going to go anywhere.
When is Travis eligible to come back?
It's like mid or early December, something like that. Like December 2nd. I might be pulling that number completely out of thin air, but
what record would you rather have? Like this. Let's say, for instance, give me a record we could be at around that time. Would you bring them back if we're winning, or would you bring them back if we if we need just these 2 games? What do you think?
Let's see. Let me look at this. So we got a bye week this week. So November 2nd, or sorry, November 3rd. So look, at that point, you're entering like the final 4 games of the season. So let's say they're 3-4 now. Realistically, you can only afford like 2 more losses the rest of the way. So ideally, you want to be in a position where you're not around 500, and that's what this team feels like, man.
What if you like one of those situations where you got to win out? You're like 7 and let's say 7-6, 6-6 or something like that, and you got to win.
Where you got to win out?
Yeah, you got.
I have no faith in this team to do that. I'm on it. I'm serious, man. I have no faith in this team to win out in that scenario. Not this year. I think there are problems in this team that need to be addressed. One of which we need to start having an open dialogue about is Tyron Smith. He's getting whipped by speed rushers this year. Now, he's drawn some tough matchups, but man, part of what's struggling with this line right now is he's getting whipped. You're seeing Zach Martin at times getting beat, which used to never happen. Your rookie Williams is looking like a rookie some games. He's had his good moments too, but there's just so much with this line that's hurting this team. And when its sole identity it's built around running the ball can't happen on the road, like you invest that in a run game and in an offensive line, because theoretically that can travel on the road and always be productive, right? It's not weather resist, or it's not weather affected or anything like that. That's why you do all that. So we have all this money and resources tied up in that, and that's the part of our game that's not traveling. Like, oh man, I don't know. I think this team is probably heading toward an 8-8. At this point, 9-7 would almost feel like a celebration just for this team. But I feel like
9-7 what we learned in the playoff, though. Look like from this division.
9-7 gets me more Jason Garrett, and at this point, I don't think I even want that. And that's the thing, that those games, Houston and now Washington, you're like, oh, we're scratching and clawing for this last spot. Like, we're still in it mathematically, and we're going to be sitting here saying, if you had kicked that field goal, you might have had an extra game, or if you had made at least a couple attempts at the end zone, you would have had that. Tony Romo was calling that out on the broadcast. He was literally saying, they need to do something more with this time. They're draining this clock. At least try to make something for the end zone. No, Tony knows. He knows that's what Jason does. That's what Jason did with him. Clock management has always been a flaw of Garrett's, because Garrett plays conservative. He plays for the tie. He plays for overtime. It's not going to change. Like, nothing is going to be fixed with this coaching staff. We've had more than enough time, more than enough evidence to tell us if this coaching staff is going to really change, because week to week, they're Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. They'll finally do some stuff and you'll say, hey, it's like they understand. And then the next week you're like, did you just completely forget everything that worked last week? Like, I get it. It's not the same matchup, but there's some stuff that you can carry over as far as things you try to implement and things you try to do. They're not doing that. Yeah, and it's just, right. I feel like it's holding this team back. 2 games you should have at least tried to steal, and I felt like he was content playing for a tie or playing for overtime.
Well, let's say if we do so happen to not do it all, right, and lose all out, or what would you do for Lincoln Riley?
What would I do for Lincoln Riley?
And Botch Lombardi's word, who will you kick off a bridge for Lincoln Riley?
Well, for my college team, I've already got Lincoln Riley.
But what about it for your America's team, the Cowboys, the silver and blue?
Right.
The chat box, what would you guys do for Lincoln Riley right now? And then you still, because think about this, even if you promote my guy Chris Richard as the head coach, you still have to go out and find an offensive coordinator. And I'm not saying Lincoln Riley, of all people, will say, okay, I'll come out here and coach up the offense, because that's something like he will have to make a major move. Maybe you can do this. Get Lincoln Riley, and then you can promote Chris Richard as the defensive coordinator. Bam.
Right.
Boy, we on to the Super Bowl. We winning 3 Super Bowls in a row, baby. They ain't gonna know what to happen.
Yeah. Hey, if you want to look at it this way, the last time you hired a Sooner head coach, you did get a Super Bowl, although it wasn't really his team. But we'll just roll with that. So to me, if you were to get Lincoln Riley, one, he's already making like $5 or $6 million at Oklahoma, so money is not going to be something that really draws him in. But at the same time, if you could get him, I think there would be a little bit of a struggle with the power dynamic with just how Jerry operates. It would have to be, okay, is Steven running the show, and is Steven going to let Lincoln do what Lincoln wants to do? If that happens, then maybe there's some more there. But it's a copycat league. Everyone wants to do what Sean McVay is doing. Lincoln Riley is one of the best offensive minds in the country, and there's a reason why every offseason all these coaches are going to Norman, Oklahoma to ask Lincoln Riley about his scheme and pick his brain and see kind of his philosophy and how he does certain things. And that always happens. I mean, the Mullen, Dak's college coach, when he was the offensive coordinator at Florida and Urban Meyer was the head coach, you had the Patriots staff, who's the guy that's the head coach in waiting for New England?
McDaniels.
Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels. Yeah, he met with, as well as Belichick, met with Mullen and Urban Meyer, and they picked their brain about the system. And that's what the 2007 Patriots offense was. Essentially, Dak's coach's offense. So there are elements to that. Yes, they had their own wrinkles they worked in, of course, but that shows that it's not rare for head coaches or coordinators to go to the college ranks and pick their brains. And it's happening more and more. And yes, they're going to Norman to ask Lincoln Riley stuff. So there are people who are interested in that. And I get it. It's copycat league. So they're going to try and recreate kind of what the Rams have managed to find in McVay. Would it work? Probably. But if that's the case, I don't think Dak's the right guy for Lincoln's system. Well, like based on just what Lincoln looks for in quarterback, there's a more pure passer element to it. Yes, his system makes it easier and he can make Dak more productive, but I think ultimately he's going to want his guy, and you're not going to be able to have Dak kind of coddled the way he is.
But Lincoln Riley might look at it like, look, I got Rico, I got.
Oh yeah, he'd make use of Rico.
He make use of Rico. He said, I got Ezekiel Elliott, I got Gallup, and I got Amari Cooper. I'm gonna put 40 on the board every week. Somehow I'll figure out a way to put 40 on there.
Right.
Yeah, because he just a creative genius. I think he got a crazy record, man. But
he's got like. You ask him what his head coach record is.
Yes.
He lost 2 his first year, so he's lost 3 games.
3 games, 18-3 probably. Some crazy record like that probably.
Yeah, I think he was like 12-2 his first year, and he's like 7-1 right now.
He's an offensive genius, man. But with that being said, man, as we get ready to close the curtains on this wonderful show, man, what are your thoughts on this? I guess by week, what do you think and what we should do to face against?
They're 3-4. They're gonna have Tennessee coming out of the bye week on Monday Night Football. It'll be home, so by that logic, it's a win. Tennessee is very beatable, but then again, so was Washington, and they're gonna have to try and get back to 500 with this win. And to me, the problem is they preached all last week heading into the Washington game. Communication. Oh, we're working on this communication. Well, you saw a better connection as far as the receivers and the quarterback for the most part. Dak had certainly opportunities missed, including when he fumbled at the goal line for the touchdown to put him down 10. He missed 2 different guys he could have hit. Gallup might have been able to take it the distance again. So there's still issues there. That was the whole theme. As far as addressing the issues, it didn't seem like it made a whole world of difference. That was still a very poor game for them. The only score they had before Dak's, Herculean drive at the end of the game was the one time they beat him deep on the Gallup double move. So I don't know, man. It feels like more of the same. I'm sure Dallas will come out of the bye week. We'll probably see Cooper get something like 89 yards and 2 touchdowns or something, and we'll be, oh, look at the new toy, new weapon. This is great. The future's bright. And then they'll go on the road the next week, and he'll have like 27 yards and no touchdowns. We'll find ourselves again wondering what's going wrong here. I like the pieces they're assembling. I have no faith in this coaching staff to make it work. That's where I'm at.
That's where you at. So is this like after the bye week? Is this like one of that stretch of our schedule where we have those 3 games within? Okay. So I guess we would have a home game, away game, and a home game and a home game, right? Or is it a home, away, a home?
Let me pull
it up for me while. And appreciate everybody that's tuning in while my guy DDP pulling up while we finna wrap this thing up. Gregory, Say Prime Time, Incognito, thank you, and Slot. Thank you guys for regulating the chat box over here on the YouTube side. I really appreciate all the hard work you guys been doing. I saw those stats out there. What you got? You got it up there already?
Yeah. So we have the Monday night game against the Titans here. And then we have 2 straight road games at Eagles and at Falcons.
No, for real? Like that?
Yep. And then we go home versus the Redskins, home versus the Saints, home versus the Eagles.
Okay, that's a good stretch.
Road versus Colts, home for Buccaneers, and road for Giants.
Okay, so
we got two straight. So here's the logic.
Okay.
If you get back to 500, beating the Titans, you have a chance to then, if you can't figure it out on the road, be 4-6 coming home. But then you got 3 games, so maybe you can get to 7-6 to your point earlier. And at that point, if you're 7-6, if you get through that, which by the way, you got to win a couple really tough home games to do that. Let's see. Then at that point, you're right around the time Frederick would be eligible to return. Again, we have no idea where he's at progression-wise for his recovery. That's just the pure when he would be eligible for being on the IR to return list. So I don't know, man. I think you let Frederick take the year instead of bringing him back the last 3 games for a team that even if they did sneak their way into the playoffs, I don't think they're beating anybody.
If we win all of our home games, right, that put us at 8 wins, right? We have to sneak out a win on the road. And I looked at it when you said it. I looked at that Colts game. Not to sleep on them. But I think that team is an inside dome type of game. So maybe you can sneak away with that game. And maybe this is how it's going to draw up. I'm predicting this right now. It's going to be the exact thing that always hunt us for many of years with Jason Garrett. It's going to be the last game. You win against Eli and company. There's going to be a home. It's going to be a away game. It's going to be cold up there. And we're going to have to win it to get in. And that defense is something serious. And everybody's going to be sitting at the edge of their seat because at the end of the day, we still going to want to get in.
Remind me, what's Jason Garrett's record in those situations?
I'm not going to. Somebody put that in the chat box, man. But I'm still optimistic about this team.
Winning you're in, I think he's 0-4.
Yes, indeed, man. It's been a pleasure, man, talking to everyone that's in the chat box and that's on the Facebook panel. It's been a pleasure talking to you too as well, DDP. Go ahead and tell them where they can find you at and all this good stuff, man.
Yeah, you guys can find me on Facebook, The Dallas Prospect, on Twitter, @Dallas Prospect. Give us a follow there. Live tweet Cowboy games, Maverick games as well. You can check out the website, thedallasprospect.com, your home for Dallas sports and all things pop culture. I write for Dallas Sports Fanatic as well, so that gives their staff writer for Cowboys and Mavericks. Some of the articles have been picked up on Bleacher Report. So give that stuff a read. If you want to check it out there, you can go to DallasSportsFanatic.com, or it always cross-post about later that same day or the next day to DallasProspect.com or whatever, TheDallasProspect.com. They both go to the same place. But yeah, just check out the channel. Give us a subscribe if you haven't already. Ring the notification bell. We go live 5-6 times a week talking Mavericks, Cowboys, college football, all sorts of good.
They're gonna look good this year. I guess they can get at least 46 wins. Believe it or not. What do you think?
That would be a bold prediction for sure. Vegas had them at 34.5.
Wow.
I think that they're very young and they're one of the oldest rosters despite the best talent on their team being young. I would say they're probably in the neighborhood of 38 to 40 wins. I think they're a year away from being a playoff team, personally. But Luka Doncic he's showing out. I mean, he looks like he's the real deal. So there's something there to look forward to if you're a Mavericks fan. That pairing with him and Dennis Smith Jr. Whew.
Dennis Smith, he can jump out of a building, man. I saw your
tied for the highest vertical in NBA history.
I saw your reaction video on his dunking, man. Guys, go follow DDP's YouTube page and watch his reaction of Dennis Smith jumping out of the building. Shout out for the donation, Afro Sheen 42. Thank you for making the donation again. Guys, I have a podcast. That's LAW Nation. Don't forget to join that podcast. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook as well as Twitter and Twitch. Patreon, that's where you can go and watch some nice good stuff there. I am also on iTunes. You name it, just type in Law Nation. You'll see either my face or my logo, and we're going to get this thing going one way or another. That's the Dallas Prospect. Every legend was once a prospect, right? And remember,
every legend was once a prospect. Yes.
Yes, every legend, even Deion Sanders, right?
Yeah, remember, everyone had to be a prospect at some point.
You all are listening to Nothing But the Best. Salute. We're out.
Peace.